Uh, I finally got it. I finally was able to push the record button with it in the holder. I'm so happy right now. I know that's silly, but it was annoying. Trust me. I'm sure you all have your own foibles with your various cameras and whatnot. So I wanted to, let me put on a little more light because it's late. Oops. Sorry. And then it was dark. I said put on more light, and then I turned the lights off. Awesome. It's kind of late here, but I wound up napping during the day. I fell asleep at the what must have been the last 10 or 15 minutes of Natasha's sale. I was laying there listening, and sometimes the sound of just people talking, if they have a soothing voice, will put me right to sleep if I've been awake for a while, and I had been, so thank you, Natasha. I had a wonderful 4-hour nap, and I had probably been up for about 26 hours, so it was nice. So I wanted to get on here and finish up with what I've been working on in my die lots. Oof. So I'm going to put this under here, just making a mess everywhere. So I'm trying to dye some lace that I have. Some of it I've bought, and some of it this piece I've had for a while. It's some wedding lace that a friend of mine gave me when she opted not to get married. I have not dyed this one yet, so this is my example. This is an off-white lace. I have not attempted to dye it yet. It's a nice, delicate pattern. I don't know what to stick in there. Give me a second. I can do this. My brain doesn't want to work. So let's see if I can. It's just got a nice floral pattern on it, so and it's a slightly open weave, but not terribly open. I am gonna tea dye that. Now these two have been dyed. Let me see if I can. The same one time, but you can see this one took the dye up a little better and looks grungier. I think that's because it's a more open weave, and this is a tighter weave. So let's see. I think you've seen that. I think I got this at Pearls, although I'm not 100% on that. But it's a nice. It's still a little open here. It's but the pattern is smaller. This has a much larger pattern. Let's see if I can find a spot where I could stick the cardboard. And the designs are farther up. I am really struggling today. Come on. And the designs are just farther apart. So I want to do both of these again. This may have to be done a third time because these have been done, both of them, one time in the coffee. Now this one, I think I got this from Natasha at her very first sale, or at the very first sale of hers that I attended. And this has been in the coffee 3 times because it's a small piece and it doesn't take very long. I just put it in while the coffee is condensing on the stove, because I make in my pot. So my mega dye vat takes 3. I think I have a 6-quart Dutch oven, and the Dutch oven holds 3.5 pots, and it takes 3 of those to fill up my mega dye vat. So I put the pieces in when it's condensing, because I let it simmer for a while so that the pots of coffee, it kind of, not so it's like soupy or anything, just so that some of the water boils out and it's a more concentrated form. I don't know if anybody else does that, but I like it, the way the color turns out. It does warm up the house, though, I will say that. So I just put these in because it's simmering. It's not like a bubbling, brewing boil. I'm not boiling lace like some kind of weird crafty witch. Or maybe I am. So this one's done. I'm happy with the color. It's nice and dark. This one I definitely want a little darker, and this one I only want a little bit darker. I don't want it to get, I don't think, this dark. And I'm debating on whether or not to actually dye this. It's quite a large piece, so maybe I'll cut it in half. Well, it's, in my opinion, it's a large piece. I'm sure Brooke's out there going, that's not large. Or Johnny, maybe. So that's, you know, directly in half, and it's a pretty good size piece. So maybe I'll cut that in half and dye half and keep half original. Because I don't want everything in my life to be coffee dyed. And I do have some lace pieces that I also want to try the black dye with and see how it comes out. But I need to get the alum or just the Rit Dye Fixative, and then I would have to hand wash it. I can't put the washer and dryer I have access to is for the whole complex, and I would be a giant jackass if I went out and used the one washer and the one dryer we have for the property to wash out dyed cloth. Something other than, like, I don't mind doing the coffee because that doesn't really leave a residue, but with dye, with the Rit dye in fabric, you can really mess up a washer. And I don't want to dye other people's clothes weird colors. Even though I'm not that fond of all of my neighbors, I'm still not that big a jackass. So, yeah, this is going to be super grungy, I think. So that'll be nice on a Haunted Spooky Creepy journal, or maybe a boho one. But that's going to come out super grungy. And this one I just like to get a little grungier, but I think because the pattern is smaller, it's still going to not feel as grungy as this open weave one. So that's what I've been doing for the last 3 or 4 coffee batches with that big lace. I have not tried any small trim because I don't actually have that much trim. Now I'm paranoid that I'm not recording, but it looks like I am. So let me move this up a little bit. So this is some more of the paper. This is from a different batch a couple of days ago. Still with the polka dotty. I've been having good luck getting nice dark papers recently. This batch was a pretty good. I only did a few papers in this batch, but some of the notebook paper is for lots by itself. Some people just like the notebook paper. They don't want it with anything else. And then I also do a 75 lot where it's the notebook paper, steno paper, and the plain paper. And I need to make some of those because I think I only have 2 left in Etsy, and I usually carry 6 to 8. And I think I only have 1 left on eBay, and I usually carry 2, sometimes 3. It depends on the time of the year. I only list a fraction of what I list in my Etsy on eBay. You only get 50 listings for free, and occasionally they'll offer you more, but I try not to use too many of those, because at the end of the period, if your stuff hasn't sold, you're going to get charged if you, say, got 100 free listings and you only sold 20 of them. Well, if you listed all 100, 80 of those are going to renew, and you're going to have to pay anything over 50, the listing fee. And so I don't want to have to deal with that. So I try to keep it between 50 and 60 items. I don't mind paying a little bit, but I don't want to pay a ton. Etsy's or eBay's fees overall are just more than Etsy's. Their transaction fees are more. And then also they have their own transaction, listing, and selling fees that they do. And then it goes to PayPal and they take out their fee. So it just costs more to do business through eBay. So I try to focus on Etsy more, but I don't have a big enough customer base to totally leave eBay altogether. And I do like shopping on eBay for certain things. It's certainly, in my opinion, not the kind of marketplace it used to be. Used to be you could go and get a good deal, and mom and pop shops were welcome, and handmade stuff was more easily found. Their whole setup now seems to be for people who are reselling electronics and clothes. This is my opinion. I don't know how true this is. And for brick and mortar stores, even big businesses that could have the, and probably do have their own websites, they're also selling on eBay, and it's designed for that. And they keep coming out with all these features. Well, they've started asking me every time I list something now, do I want to turn on a certain feature? And what it does is for every day over a certain period that I have my item listed, they want to reduce the price by 5% until it sells. And I price my items pretty low already. If I let them reduce it by 5% every day until it's sold, after maybe it's a 10-day period or a 7-day period, I don't really pay attention to it anymore because I'm not going to do that. And that might be great if you're selling something that's worth a couple $100. Then a 5% decrease, if it hasn't sold in a certain time period, might be appealing to you for an item you know is going to sell. Sometimes my stuff sits in eBay and I don't have any sales for close to a month, and then I'll have a sale, and then all of a sudden I'll have a run on sales, and then I'll have to restock my shop. But the features that they've been coming out with in the last 18 months are not geared for small sellers like me. They're geared for people who list a lot of things, one, and people who list at a higher price point, in my opinion. And their search parameters and the way that they do the featured listings and stuff is really not geared towards handmade items. And it never really was, but it used to be easier to get seen and for people to know you were out there with handmade items, and I just don't feel like that's the case anymore. I think it's harder to get people to your listings. It's not impossible, but it's not as easy as it used to be. So that's this one's going to be for a 75 lot, and I've toyed with doing a 50 lot, 25 of this and 25 of the plain, but I'm not sure if anybody would be interested. And then I did also play with the idea of doing a 50 of the plain and 50 of the lined. I just haven't decided if I want to do that yet. It doesn't hurt to test items, because you, for 20 cents, you know, and I can change what the listing is. If, say, that item is, I do a 100 lot and it's 50 of the line and 50 of the plain, and it doesn't sell after a month or so, or 2 months, then I can go in and change the parameters and make it just 100 sheets of plain paper, or, you know, I can change whatever it is. I don't have to leave it at that. So it's not like you're just losing it, and it's only 20 cents anyway, so maybe I should just attempt to do that. All right, and then I have some like this. This is a test I did. I just sold one of these. It's 25 black pieces of paper. So I love the way I think these are, some of them to me are super creepy, the designs that come out. And this is the black dye, and I with this RIT dye, and you can see pink is even part of this. Some of their, because that's not cross contamination, that's just a thinning and separating of the dye. As you get closer to the top of the dye, it's more concentrated at the bottom, and I have to keep adding the black, and the water has to be super hot for this to work. So you can see I'm not giving you the finger there. I just did some not black but a different color, and I tested the water, and it was way too hot. I blistered the tip of my finger there, and it's giving me heck. It's hard to do dishes and stuff, so I have to be super careful with it. This is like my third or fourth injury. I'm trying to hold my fingers together, but you can see that's not paint. Well, under my fingernails is definitely coffee and cinnamon, but right there where you see that, that's not paint or glue or anything, or schmutz from arts and crafting. That's a couple of where I had to pull away the skin because it was quite painful. I had blistered and dried, and now I just have like this hard right along the pad up here that I keep having to lotion and peel away. Hopefully it'll go away eventually. But yes, if you're doing that, be super careful when you test the water. It has to be as hot as my fingers will stand it, but I didn't really think about it. I put the water in the pan with the dye in it, and I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and I didn't think, somewhere in my head I thought, oh, it's been a while, because I don't know, that's just where my brain went at that moment. And I stuck my finger in there, and it was still boiling hot water. So be very careful. So what happens is, as you get closer to the top, and the water starts to cool, you'll get some separation. And with the black, I've seen a little blue in it. I've seen a little red in it. I've seen, obviously, some of the pink in it. And for some of the papers, the way they lay on top of each other in the dye or in the drying process, I've gotten some really good effects with it. The black is one of my favorite to play with. The purple is another one because it will also separate in constituent colors, and you get some good swirly, patterny effects. These papers are pretty. See, there's the occlusions where there were bubbles in between the sheets of paper, and here also. And then there's just it's kind of mottled there. But the purple and the black are two of my very favorite to play with. But I like doing all the colors. I can't wait to do blue and see how that comes out. Because I made some aquamarine, a test run a while back. And I don't know what happens. Sometimes I do a test run and I'm like, ooh, that turned out really nice. Because it was a nice light color, but it's very close to teal. So that may be why I did not go through. And I think I just gave the last of it away. So I don't even have any to show you. I gave the very last of it away. So it was kind of this color, but this is the teal on the line paper, and it's a very light version of the teal. The aquamarine was kind of close to this, but it was a little brighter. So let me see if I have any. Oh, here, this is a strip from one of the. So this is the aquamarine, and let me see if I have what I have with teal on it. No, I think that's teal. I don't think I have anything over here by me that is dyed teal. Hold on. Maybe I have a coffee filter behind me in my little goodie box. I do. I have a little coffee filter that's teal. Come on. Not even a little hidey hole in there. It didn't want to come out and play. So this is the aquamarine, and this is the teal. And when the teal gets light enough, like, for example, this. So this is what I mean by it's brighter. This is very pastel, sort of. And this is kind of the darkest that it gets, but this is generally the color that comes out. And so you can see that this aquamarine blue is just a brighter blue. It reminds me of the sky, kind of, when it's on a big piece. So I think I felt like they were too close and that I might wind up mixing the lots. And I went with the teal because somebody saw the teal paper and went bananas. And that was like sometime last year. But this is what the teal looks like on some of the coffee filters. It comes out really good. And I didn't dip this whole thing in there. What I did was it comes in the shape. Oh, look at my claw. It comes in the shape, and I just took a big section of that and chunked it right in there so it wicked up while it stayed in the shape of the coffee filters when they're just hanging out in the bag, but upside down. So the middle didn't take any dye, but it wicked from the bottom up so you get the dark. These would be good ruffles, or I guess you could make an envelope out of it. You could also just fold it and put it in a journal. Although it would have to be a big journal. I need to get some smaller ones. These are the industrial size. And they're too big for a lot of the small journals. That's why it would be nice if you have a sewing machine, if you wanted to make ruffles out of it. This stuff is super durable, and it takes dye really well. Coffee, Rit dye, it takes Kool-Aid well. I've done it with beets. It takes beet very well. So if you wanted the middle to be white or light colored, just put it, the whole section. Don't even try and separate them out at all. Just put the whole thing in there. I can show you what I mean. I'm sure you know what I mean, but I feel compelled to show you anyway. I'm actually running low on coffee filters. So actually like this, so that shape, so you just, I use a smaller, I don't use my big die vat, because what will happen is, if you use the big die vat, it'll start to flatten out as it absorbs water. So I put it in a smaller baking dish, like a 6x6 or something like that, I think is what it is. And so it only spreads out a little bit, and then so you don't get any dye in the middle, you just get it really dark on the very edges, and then it wicks up, and you get a nice pattern like that. So now that I've over-explained that, so that's, I have, like, somebody just bought this, so I have just enough paper to replace it, and then I need to, like, get on the stick about dyeing some more papers, because now I only have, like, 10 sheets of purple and 2 sheets of black. Like, I had huge, like, probably more than a ream at the beginning of the summer, and I haven't been dyeing these colors. I've been experimenting with other things. Yeah, that one has some nice occlusions on it, too. And so, bad me. But this one will be in the shop tomorrow at some point. I can't guarantee a time of day. It depends on when I fall asleep, if I fall asleep, how loud my son is, when my neighbor goes to work, because apparently everything I do is too loud, even if it's reading a book or taking photographs. I don't know how your camera could be that effing loud, but according to him, I'm very disturbing, which my opinion is, maybe there's a reason you live alone and I've never seen you in a relationship, because you are awfully picky about what other people do with their time. And to be fair, my son is very loud when he games, but he doesn't game late at night, and sometimes he games early in the morning, but he has a loud voice, and he doesn't laugh or giggle, he guffaws. So if he's watching like videos and he thinks they're funny, because he watches all kinds of stuff, and I look at what he's laughing at, because he'll be laughing so hard he's like crying and falling off the bed, and I looked at what he was watching and I'm like, that is not funny. So different opinions, I guess, but and I do understand there isn't a lot of insulation between the two units, but that guy he works at a bar, and he comes home at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and he turns on Madonna, and it sounds like there's a rave in his apartment, but it's just him. And then he will sing at the top of his lungs, and he sings very badly. Maybe I wouldn't be quite so offended if he didn't sing so bad. But really, from my perspective, I think, well, if I worked at a bar and I got off at 3 in the morning, I would come home and put on some music and vacuum my carpet, and that's the kind of stuff he does. And my son gets very frustrated. I said, but you think about when you come home from work and the things you want to do. Yeah, but that's a normal time of the day. I'm like, but he's not awake at the normal time of the day. And my opinion has always been, I don't generally, except in a few occasions over the years, think that people are deliberately making noise to screw with me. I think that people are just trying to live their lives, and they're doing the things they would normally do. And I think some people don't realize how loud they are. But the problem I have with how he lives isn't the noise he makes, because it's his TV. When he watches it super loud. It's his music, it's super loud. His singing is super awful and super loud. He snores, and we can hear that sometimes. I can hear his microwave go off in the middle of the night if it's, if I don't have a fan on. But I put on headphones or earphones, or I turn on my fan and let the oscillating, the white noise take care of it. For him, all of our noise, no matter what time of day or night it is, whether he's asleep or awake, is bad. The only time we should be able to make noise is when he's not there, in his opinion. But all of his noise is 100% okay. Thank you for letting me vent. I feel better now. And I can only talk about this when that jackass isn't at home. And I don't even dislike him, because we open up our house a lot. I've heard him socializing with the neighbors. He seems like a really nice, funny guy. But for whatever reason, we do not get along. There is something about him that sets my teeth on edge, and always has, even though I have tried to be polite. And his opinion that everything we do is wrong and everything he does is okay doesn't help me. It doesn't engender good feelings towards him. I don't wish him ill, but I wish he would chill the fuck out. Pardon my language. So this is the batch I just finished. And I had some lined paper in it and some book pages. So I think I had 50 book pages and maybe 45 to 60 lined notebook paper in with this. So that's how much I can fit in my mega die batch. And you can see from the edges, this stuff right here was probably closest to the top, and this was in the middle, and probably this down here, and then all of this dark stuff here. Let me make sure because I saw the other day I was showing you something on the side and it was just off camera. So all of this right in here is from the end of the die batch, especially this, like right down in here. But so that's an idea of how much papers I get out of one die batch, and it takes a total of about 4 days from start to finish, sometimes 5, depending on how tired I am, for me to condense the coffee, to soak the paper, to dry the paper, to iron the paper, and then I like to press it under heavy books for about 7 to 10 days. And right now I'm only averaging 3 because I had not realized, and this is such a shame on me thing, that I had let my Etsy store and my eBay with the coffee dyed paper, I let it get really low, and people were starting to email me and they're like, you never have coffee dyed paper anymore. And I'm like, I am so sorry. Because I looked and I had 25 lots and it said coffee tea, but you know, you only get the little bit of the description, and if you mouse over it, it doesn't show you the rest. Well, what I was seeing was lined paper, 25 lots of lined paper. So I thought there was plenty of coffee dyed paper in there, but there wasn't. So I need to like really get on it, because August was a good month for us last year, and I don't want to lose out on sales because I flubbed it and let my inventory get much lower than it is. So I think I'll do this in half because this is a lot of paper and it's hard to handle like flipping through that much all at once. So let me pull it back as far as I can so you can kind of see. So you got some good markings here, and I like that right there. And you can see some occlusions. Some of the, there's some good ones here. So let's just flip through. There's some polka dot paper. And lately my polka dot paper used to be really plain on the back. And now I'm getting this really, it's polka dot on one side and super grungy on the other. And I'm really happy about this. I don't know how many people like their paper this dark. I don't like it for everything because I think it can be hard to see if you want to write on it. But if you want to make a super grungy journal, that is the bomb right there. And these don't have any the oven rack dried paper either, which I really like the effect that leaves on it. The next batch that I am brewing right now, which will be ready towards the end of next week. I'll probably be up over the weekend unless I can really jam on it. Here's another, this is another polka dotty one. You can see the polka dots right there. So this is really dark. There's the polka dots. And I got some nice stippling right there. Just really loving the effects that are coming out. Yes, I love my own paper. I actually really, genuinely, people are like, you're just saying that because that's your business. 3 people have told me that in the last month, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. I love doing this. It is, you know, like knitting, the process, like I have to stand in there, and when I put the papers in, it's in 3 sections because I have to make 3 pans of the coffee tea. So that's the reason the paper at the bottom is so much darker. While I'm making the second pan, I put the papers in, but standing there for, you know, I think it's a 6-quart Dutch oven. It holds 3.5 12-pot coffee, the carafe, in the Dutch oven. And then I boil that down until it hits where the handles are, where the rivets are. And maybe next time I'll show you the pan. I've never like dumped it into something and measured how many cups it is after. Um, but so I pour that into the dye vat, and I squeeze out the tea bags, and I lay those out on one of the papers I showed you before, and then I start another batch, and I'll have about half the coffee brewed when it comes off, and so I'll put the coffee that's brewed in the pan and brew the rest of it while I start heating up the coffee, and it's just a continuous process. It takes me a little over a day. Well, it takes me exactly about 12 hours to get all the coffee done if I don't get distracted or have to cook in the middle, because I have a tiny kitchen. So, but I genuinely, even though that sounds, you're like, that sounds horrendous and not fun at all, I really, really enjoy doing it. I find knitting, because I can knit, but only the basic, the knit stitch. That's the only one I know. But I find it very meditative because it's repetitive. So when I pour the dye in the dye vat and it's cool enough to put the papers in, I'm standing there for sometimes over an hour, depending on how much I let it evaporate, just counting 1, 2, 3. Because I try to keep track, because one time I didn't keep track, and I wound up with over 500 pages in the vat of this kind of paper. And that's too many, because in the middle it starts to rise up a little bit, and that part doesn't take the dye as well. But I had pressed too many papers into the coffee, and I got, even though the coffee and itself was really, really dark, the papers came out really light because I had compressed them too much. I got almost no effects. I got almost no occlusions. And it also did not dry with as many markings on the racks that I use. And so I be counting that. Yes, good English. Good English, Amy. So I try to count as I go. And that, it's like washing dishes. I don't have to think about it. I just, as long as I'm not thinking about something else also, I keep good track of the paper, and it's monotonous, but not in the boring way. It's like when you drive on autopilot, my brain just goes, all my monkey brain goes into the back of my head and it quiets down. And so when I do that, even though it's hard for me to stand for long periods, like over 2.5 hours, if I stand for longer than that, I start to get not happy about life. But when I'm dripping glue everywhere now, shit. Oh, good, nothing. Just one little part right there. I got it. Okay. Sorry about that. I don't know where I'm going to put that. I'm going to have to sacrifice some paper. I don't want to sacrifice paper. You're like, why are we watching this? She's weird. Nope, that's somebody's address. I can't do that. I should probably move that farther out of frame though. Oh, here. I can use this. Okay, I don't feel bad because I have tons of that. You're like, why don't you have baby wipes? Because I don't know where I'd put them. Because I am apparently extra special. And not in a good way. So, that's about as far as we've gotten. And I'll flip maybe this side too. Look, there you go. As you can see different effects on the other side of the paper. Because sometimes it's one-sided. Like, it'll be more darker on this side. More darker, yes, more darker. And then we'll do this side as well here. Oh, gotta even that up a little bit. So there we go. What was I talking about before I put glue everywhere? That's a good question, Amy. What were you talking about before you put glue everywhere? Oh, it's relaxing when I'm done, and I like pull myself together to stop counting paper. I feel like almost like I've had a nap because my brain quieted down. My breathing became very even. So it is very meditative for me. I don't know if everybody experiences that when they, are doing the coffee and tea dyeing, and even the drying process, taking the papers out and laying them, because it's very repetitive. I've figured out a technique where I don't rip my paper as often. I'm not saying I don't. I still get quite a lot of oopsies and uh-ohs. but it doesn't happen quite as often as it used to. And so that is also repetitive, and my monkey brain goes to the back, and so it's relaxing and I feel refreshed afterwards, even though I've been standing, and that is sometimes physically challenging for me. And that's why I love it so much. Not only do I love the papers I get and the effects and all of that, and I put a lot of thought into what I dry it on and how long and how much, how high I turn up the oven to make the stovetop hot enough, and where I lay the papers and where the fan points at and all of those things. So it has like a spiritually healthy component for me. Plus, I get the crafty perspective of it, so it has a double benefit for me. I don't know if anybody else experiences that, or if you're all sitting there, the few of you that are watching this, and they're like, we don't know what she's talking about. She's lost her mind. But that's how it is for me. And this is a polka dotty paper. See, okay, this is what they all used to look like. Maybe even a little bit lighter than this. Like this side would be inordinately lighter than this side. And I don't know why. But lately I've been getting much grungier papers, and that is amazing. Now, I do not wash off my racks or my pans every time. When the polka dots start getting very light, because they will get almost non-existent, then I wash the pans and the racks correspondingly, because the buildup blocks the effects after a certain point. Until that point, it actually helps. You get some nice effects. It helps with where you see the stripe here. That's a dip in the pan, this lighter strip. And then the polka dotty part is raised a little bit, so you get darker and lighter stripes on this paper. But past a certain point, you don't get the lighter stripe, and the polka dots don't show up as well. So that's the point at which I wash all the pans and the oven rack, because then I know that the effects are just not doing as well. So you may find that disgusting, but that's how it works. A lot of tea dyeing is just tea and coffee dyeing can be disgusting if you think really hard about the process. But I don't let anything get like gross, and like there's no bugs in my house and that sort of thing. So it's not like that's an issue. It's just, it works better if it's got a little stank on it. It got some nice effects there. That's from the cinnamon. Now the batch I'm doing right now does not have any cinnamon in it, but I have convinced myself that on the next batch after, I will do the the pumpkin pie spice and see how that turns out. I'm hoping I'll be able to smell it, because that's a smell I really like. And there's some nice effects with one of the drying racks. There, and get the nice, that's where I laid another piece of paper over it. So, got some good stuff going on there. And these will be up as 25 and 50 lots. I think what I'm going to get out of this between the two is 100 lot and maybe 250 lots, or 100 lot and a couple of 25 lots. I'm not sure. I count them when I put them in, so I don't put in too many, but I never remember how many I put in. So this is only half the stack, so I've got a pretty hefty pile. But once you start counting out the lots, it doesn't go very far. And when I do the 100 lots, it goes even less far. But they sell well enough, so I like to keep a few in if I can. I try to keep 4 in, but I am being stuck at that lately. There's some nice pages right there, some nice dark ones. Alright, so that is that. And then, let me see if I have anything else that I positively feel I must show you. Let me see how long this video is, and then I'll decide. Oh, 39 minutes, we're done. Okay, I will show you the test on the Goosebumps pages I tested out, and on those music pages music pages that I tested out in this batch. But I don't want to take this any farther. We're about to hit 40 minutes, and that's too long. Sorry, babbled about my neighbor. I'm a bad person. Bye. Hope whatever time of day you're watching this, you're having an awesome, awesome, awesome day. See you later.